We're all doing really well and having a great start to your day, end of your day, middle of your day, whichever part you are in. It is wonderful to have you here with us for this Altenew Live. So welcome. We are really, really glad you're here. My name is Sara Newman, and I'm excited to be joining you for the next, say, hour or so as we do a little bit of card making with some of my favorite types of paper crafting supplies. So if you are joining in live, I'd love to see comments. So please feel free to pop a comment in the chat. I see Stacy is here from South Florida. Stacy, it's always great to have you with us. I hope you are doing well. We are going to be joined by the lovely Orem today. She will be behind the Altenew badge with us. So Orem will be keeping us up to date on all of the different products that I'm mentioning. She'll be popping in the links to those and catching any of the comments that I miss as we're going through our live today. Cece, it's wonderful to see you. And Sue, good afternoon, Sue. Wonderful to see you guys. It's always great to see the names and faces of folks that we have come to call friends. I see Rosie is from Eastern Idaho, Brenna from California. Wonderful. We're getting, Annika is from Sweden. Jill is in England. Coastal North Carolina is where Carol is. Palm Springs, Florida. We've got a lot of Floridians here. Wonderful. Stephanie is from Escondido, California, near San Diego. So Orem is in the Philippines and I'm in Germany. So it's really nice to see where everybody else is coming from too. Sue has a rainy day here in Connecticut. We've had some gray skies here in Hamburg, Germany. So it's definitely, I'm ready for spring, definitely. Jeanette is in Detroit and Berkshire, UK, Rochester, New York. Oh, almost the neighbor of Altenew. Yeah, cool. Okay, under tornado watch in Charlotte. Oh my, I hope, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. That's, nobody wants to be under tornado watch. Auckland, New Zealand. Penny is from Michigan. My dad was a Michigander from Northport. And rainy San Francisco. See a lot of rainy places, so I'm glad that you guys are tucking in for a cozy day, afternoon, or morning, or evening of crafting. So I'm here in Hamburg, Germany, where it is nighttime. It's a little bit earlier than I normally am because you in the US had daylight savings, and we will have ours not this weekend, but the next weekend. So we have a little bit of a time difference to get used to. So it is wonderful to see everybody, regardless of where you are watching from. We're just glad that you're here. Orem has posted in a note reminding us that if you share tonight's live while we are live, then you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. So after you share in whatever method you share tonight's video, then go ahead and post your share. Just let us know, share it on Facebook or whatever, and then Orem will have a pool of people that she can draw from. So that is the standing offer for Altenew and for every one of the lives, which is wonderful. So the other thing that I normally do when I'm doing a live is at the beginning, I'll kind of go through some of the products that I'm going to be using, and then I'll just go straight into the demos. So I'll be doing my best to keep my eye on the comments as well as talking and demonstrating. But if I miss anything, feel free to, kind of wave your hand or post again, and hopefully Orem or I will catch it. So let's talk about embossing folders. I think that I'm not alone in being someone who loves embossing folders. I buy embossing folders. I put them in a special place in my crafting area, and I very often forget about them. And then when I get them out, when I have like a project to do, a magazine commission or video or something like this, and I get out the embossing folders, I am reminded why I love them so much. Sometimes I think I just forget about them. So I don't know why that is, but maybe some of you are in the same boat. They just are such a fantastic tool, easy to use, sturdy. It's a great tool, like stamps, like stencils. You can use them again and again, and they have lots and lots of different techniques. So we're going to be playing with a couple from Altenew. This one here is the flowers and leaves, and you can see it's an all over flower and leaf design, just like it says. Big, beautiful blossoms on here. And these are 6 inches square. So if you're doing an entire background on a large square card, this would be great. Also, if you're doing a photo map for a scrapbook page, this would also work too. But of course, you can also use just a portion of the design too. So this is one that we're going to be working with. I just think this is beautiful. It's like a really fresh and elegant, but also has almost an Art Nouveau style to it with those blossoms. Really, really pretty. So that's one that we are going to be using. Sue, you agree that the Altenew 3D embossing folders are fantastic? Yes, they are. This is the other one that we're going to be working with, and this is the Ornamental feature die. Now, Sue, you mentioned the slot on the top, and I think you are meaning this one, which you say helps you make a layer for a slimline card. So great tip there. So you've got your hinges on either side, but then you've got kind of got an open area here. I'll show that to you guys in a sec. So the Ornamental feature is hard to see. A little bit easier if I turn it over and you can see the design on the back. So you'll get this beautiful kind of like half doily with an open area here, perfect for a sentiment, either stamped or die cut. So before I show you what I'm fitting into that area, I'll just show also here, Sue, I think this is what you're referring to, the slot in here, which would allow you to slide some cardstock through the front. So for our open area here on the embossing folder, of course you can fit some of my favorites, the signature word dies. I love these little guys. You've got hello, thanks, and congrats. Perfect size for die cutting and fitting into that center section. The other thing that, the other die, hang on, let me get it from my pile here, is the Simply Friend die. I'm trying to angle this so that you can see. There we go. And what I love about this is that you can use it as it is. You can also combine it with this. So you could have it say, hello, friend, thanks, friend, congrats, friend. So lots of fun with those. Those are kind of some of my go-tos in my Altenew stash. And the other one that I'm going to be using today is this one, which is Sentiment Strips number 2. So these are all fantastic Altenew-y sentiments. By Altenew-y, you know that they are classic sentiments, but always just something just a little bit different, really thoughtful, really just heartfelt sentiments on here. So from have a super day, congratulations, you are so loved, I appreciate your kindness, just kind of everything that you could possibly need is in here. So I'm going to be working with some of those too. And finally, I have to show you this. I don't like to pick favorites with Altenew product, but desert island pick. You know the question, if you are stuck on a desert island with some crafting supplies, what would you definitely want to have? So this is my pick, the Peony Dream 3D die set. I love it. It is so easy to use. It is so it makes such a beautiful focal point, accent image, works on tags, works on cards, works on scrapbook pages. And because it's just really simple die cutting and then stacking and layering, and in the end, you create this beautiful blossom. You actually have 2 different blossoms that you can do. You can do this one, or you can do the bottom portion and layer this on top of this, which will make more sense when I show it to you. But it is a fantastic concept of layering the dies, layering the die cuts, and it just creates such a beautiful effect. So that is what I'm going to be playing with today. So I hope we are all doing okay so far. I see lots of love for the sentiment strips and for the embossing folders. Okay, so I think we're all on the same page. So what I'm gonna do is change my camera and you can take a look at my work surface here. So I think you can see okay. I know that I've got a shadowy area on here I can't change it because it's the camera overhead. So what I will do is kind of hold things up. And we're going to start with this first card, which, as you can see, is using our ornamental feature embossing folder. So I've got this beautiful embossed area, this bottom area, and then this center area where I've done the thanks, and then here's one of those sentiment strips. And of course, here is my layered die. So when working with the embossing folders, you can leave things just plain white, or you can color them, and we'll look at both ways. So we'll do some inking, but we'll also just let it be beautiful tone on tone white. So let's take a look at this. What I'm going to do is grab my embossing folder and a piece of white cardstock. So with the embossing folders, when you pop this open, you have, of course, two sides. And I think if I put this onto the dark, you can see a little bit better. So you have a debossed side, and on this side you have the embossed side, which means that all you need to do is pop your cardstock or your paper right inside. And I'm using it's not a super thick cardstock, but it's not a really thin copier paper either. It's like a Nina weight of paper or cardstock. And I'm just going to pop this in here. Now, what you can do is nest it. You can nest your cardstock right up into the fold if you want to keep things super straight, but I'm just going to pop this down here. You do not need to tape it down to secure it in any way unless that makes you feel better. And then just kind of position this so that you have it where you want it to go. Okay, so and then all you need to do is run it through your die cutting machine. Now, I have a very old, very well used Cuttlebug that is, I'm going to say probably 10 years old. I put it through its paces every day. So whatever kind of die cutting machine you have, and you probably have one that is newer and nicer than this old friend, but I do want to show you that basically all you need to do is pop the sandwich of your paper and your embossing folder into your sandwich of plates and send it through your die cutting machine. So this is pretty simple. You know, normally if I'm die cutting with this, I've got my third plate on here, and probably all of your other die cutting machines are going to be about the same. So for this one, I've got my big base plate and I've got my C plate here. So all I need to do is just sandwich this all together. And I'm going to leave you to look at this while I turn to the side and run this through my die cutting machine. I would do it on my counter, but it tends to shake the whole table and camera. So I don't want to do that. Okay, and then once I have this, all I need to do is just take it out of my folder, and you can see it's beautifully embossed. And, you know, just from one simple piece of white cardstock, I've suddenly got this really beautiful effect. And again, I can stamp something in the center here, or I can add in my sentiment like so. So this is die cut from just a scrap piece of pink cardstock. And then I've stamped this separately onto white cardstock and then just pop this in here. Okay, so let's take a closer look then at how to build around this, because what I love about this is that it is super simple. You can really take this in lots of different directions. Also, if you wanted to, of course, you can turn this. So what I'm going to do is share with you a little bit with my Peony Dream 3D die set. And if anybody has this, I want to know what you think of it. I want to know if I'm the only one who's really, really in love with this set. I suspect I'm not. So what I'm going to do is just show you how to build up the flower. So as I mentioned, we've got all of the different shapes on here. So these are all of the dies that are going to be included in your set. And here's the layering process. So if you put these together, you will create this blossom. If you put all of these together, which is this and this, plus these three up here, you'll get a larger flower. And then of course you have some leaves here. So let's take a look at how to do this. It'll make more sense. So I'm going to start with this large silhouette, which I would argue if you cut a bunch of these and created a background, I think you could have some really fun looks with just that. Then you will have a piece that looks like this when you die cut it. And honestly, I've just die cut these from scraps of cardstock that I have in my stash. So it's a great way to use up those extra pieces of cardstock that we all keep on hand, or maybe that's just me with a giant basket of scrap cardstock. So this is a great way to put them to use. Then I've got this little flower base to put down as well. Oh wait, actually, I've got a bigger one. Hang on. Got another one that I need to put down here. I tend to put a lot of these and tuck them in. I hope I've got one that I need. Let's see. Nope, that's a little bit too small. I don't think I can locate that one. Okay, we're going to skip that layer. Pretend that it's on there. You can see that mine has run away from me. So we're going to skip that one and go to our next layer. So yes, you can skip some of these layers. That's not a problem. And then another one that's this kind of spiky look. Pop that down. We've got this. You'd have this in another size as well, which will go kind of under here. And you can start to see how these layer up. Now I'm just setting them one on top of the other. If you are gluing them and you're wondering what kind of glue to use, the 2-in-1 glue pen really does the trick because it's got this nice fine tip on here so that you can just kind of scribble a bit of glue on there, and then that gets into all of these detail areas. So then you've got a little piece that can be used for the center, and then finally this teeny tiny little piece that goes in the middle. So now, of course, I'm just setting these down, but once you glue them down, you have a really beautiful floral image. So what you can do, of course, is have that bottom layer, or you can just have, I should have glued it, shouldn't I? You can just have your top layer of the flower. Okay. Like so. And you can imagine that doing this from really soft colors gives you kind of a vintage look. You can do it in bright, bold primary colors and have a really fun effect as well. But this flower comes together so easily and so beautifully. And it's also one of those that if you're making cards in batches, it's a great one to do because you can die cut several pieces in one and then do like an assembly line process. Now we also have leaves, or a leaf on here, which is just 2 pieces. You can see I've got the teal cardstock on here and then white on top. And then you can just kind of tuck these elements like so. Now on this card, I've got my flower and both leaves up on some foam tape, and I just have it angling around. So this entire piece is kind of creating a frame for that thanks, I just adore you. Who would love to get a thank you card that says, I just adore you? So this is one quick and easy way to put this embossing technique to use. Now, I will say you could take this beautiful floral motif and put it onto a piece of plain white cardstock without the embossing, but I really think that that embossing just adds a little something extra. And of course, having this space in here for your message is really nice as well. So this is our first card that I wanted to show you. So this is quick and easy, white embossing. Just run it through your machine and let it go and you are set. So let's talk about some ways to do some different things once we have our cardstock embossed. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is using some inking to create some colorful raised embossed images on here. And so for this one, of course, I'm using, hang on, let me dig it out. I'm using the flowers and leaves. So this is an all over design. Of course, this means that you can use it in its entirety, but you can also cut it apart or use it in smaller sections. And I trimmed mine down a little bit just to see if I could get that balanced and have a nice portion down here where I could have my message. So I've got a piece here that is already embossed. And again, like we've seen with the other one, you've got a beautiful white on white image, and you could use this as is. I think it would be beautiful for a wedding, anniversary, thank you, communion, christening. We have a lot of Easter, fun springtime activities and events coming up in whatever form they will be coming up. So this would make a wonderful background for something like that. Now, we can leave it as is. However, I also wanted to show you some inking techniques with this. So for this one, I'm going to get out 2 of my inks, my dye inks. I've got the Frosty Pink and I have the Coral Berry. And this is my blending brush, the one that I set aside for pinks and reds. So I've got another one here that's my greens, as you can tell. And I just find that having one that's kind of dedicated to these colors just is a little bit more organized. So what I'm going to do, starting with my piece that is raised. So on here, the flowers are raised up. If I flip it over, I've got those flowers which are debossed. So debossed and embossed. You can use either side, but I'm going to work with our embossed side first and just get a bit of the Frosty Pink on my blending tool. And I'm going to apply the ink in a gentle circular motion. I'm working on some of my craft mat, which can take a lot of abuse. It has. But this is going to protect my work surface and kind of give me an area to, rub the ink off and on. And so here, I think you can see the light. It's a pretty light color. I've got a nice base of that Frosty Pink. So let's come in now with our Coral Berry. So I'm working with tone on tone colors, but of course you could do some contrasting colors too. So here you can see where things are really starting to pop up. Now, when I'm applying my ink, I'm not tapping it. It's not like a stippling motion. I'm not squashing it. Just a really gentle circular motion, because you can always add more color. You just can't, take it off quite as easily. So I'm coming around here. Let's see. I'm going to turn this a bit. This feels like magic to me. And this is one of those techniques that reminds me why I adore embossing folders, because this is so simple, so easy to do. And yet when you have a beautiful design like this, wow, super pretty, super easy to do. So now this is the raised or the embossed side. If you're wondering, well, what will it look like if you do the same thing on the deboss side. Well, let's take a look. We'll do a little bit of experimenting here. I'll pick up some of that coral berry again. And again, same light-handed touch. These blending tools are ideal for this because they have a nice, a couple of inches across here, nice big surface. The handles make it comfortable, easy to hold. Whoever designed these handles is a genius because they're comfortable, sit nicely in your hand, easy to use. Okay, so here is the embossed and the debossed. So you can do both, either one. Sometimes you may pull the piece of cardstock out of your embossing folder and grab an ink pad and start inking, and you think, oops, I did it on the side that I didn't intend to, but never fear, you can get two really cool looks. So speaking of our blending tool, you may be wondering, well, can I just take my ink pad, to the paper instead of using the blending tool? And the answer is yes, you can. But let me show you. You may get a look that's a little bit more stark than what you want. So let's see if I've got one that is, no, I'm just going to use it on here. Oh, you know what? I'll flip it over. So here, this is just taking the ink pad itself. And again, I'm doing kind of a light, gentle motion, circular motion. What I have found is that even though it works, I find that I have a hard time getting away from the lines of my ink pad. So it may be a little bit easier with the larger oval ink pads, but I think you can see where I'm getting some lines on here that, it's not awful, but this is definitely a smoother and lighter application. So let's try it on the back of here and see what happens. Again, just using a light touch. Yeah, you can make it work, I suppose, but I think I prefer the softer blended look. But I wanted to show you just in case, because I know somebody's going to think, well, can I not just take the ink directly to the design? The short answer is you can, and that may be exactly what you want. I just found that it's a little bit more scratchy looking because you're getting the edges of your ink pad. Now that is with my little guys here, so if you're working with a larger oval ink pad, you may have a different effect. But anyway, I thought I'll try it here so that you don't have to try it at home. That's what these are for. Okay, so here is our inking onto our cardstock. And here again is the card that I made with the thanks, again, that signature dies, and then a bit of embroidery thread that's just been wrapped around. And this is the Altenew embroidery thread, which I'm using on pretty much everything these days. It just adds a nice little extra touch on there. Okay, so that is our second card. I'm going to pop this over to one side. And I wanted to show you another way of using your inks with your embossing folders. So, and I also wanted to try this with a darker cardstock because my inclination was, let's go for something light and get those bright colors out there. But then I thought, well, it's also kind of nice to go for maybe a bit more vintage, or even you could call it a more masculine effect. I'm not sure, with some darker colors. So you'll notice on here, same pattern. In this case, I've got the gold ink, and if I'm tilting this, you can see it's a nice, pretty metallic ink. This is the Antique Gold pigment ink pad. And I've got the ink kind of sitting inside this debossed area. And to do that, you need to get your embossing folder a little bit inky. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, let me grab my Antique Gold. So this is one of the pigment inks. The other one, I'll show you another example with it. This is the Enchanted Gold. So you can see the Enchanted Gold is just a bit brighter. This is a softer, I guess you would call it more antique style, more of a warmer color. This is a little bit brassier. Both of these look gorgeous, regardless of what you do with them. But let's work with the antique gold for this one. And again, I'm just going to open this up. And let me find a piece of cardstock here. Oh, wait, I've got my cardstock. Got my brown cardstock that we're going to use for this. So when you're embossing folder, you'll notice that, as we talked about before, like this side here, these flowers are raised. On this side, they are debossed. So this is like, this area is raised. This is set back away. So what I'm going to do is apply my ink onto the raised area here. I'm going to set this aside. I've got my cardstock on hand, and I'm just going to take my ink pad and I'm going to take it directly to the embossing folder. Now, I know there's at least one person watching who's like, oh my gosh, it's going to get everywhere. You can clean it up because it's plastic. These guys are plastic, so no worries about that. I have rinsed them off in the sink before. You can use a baby wipe. No problems. But what I want to do is get my raised side here all inky. Now, this ink pad is a pigment ink, which means that it's slow drying. So I don't have to rush too much. I have a little bit of time. And what I'm going to do is just pop in my cardstock, and I'll just kind of set it to one side here. And then, as before, I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. So again, I need to grab my plate here, pop this down. Now you'll notice that this is just as wide, so it's going to work really nicely. Put this on top and then run it through my machine. Okay, so hang in there with me. We'll do our reveal. And here you can see, oops, I've got this going the wrong way around, that my gold ink has gone into the areas of my flower. This is a really quick and easy way to get kind of an antiqued effect with this. Super simple and easy to do. Now, if you're wondering, okay, Sarah, great. Now, what about all this ink on here? All you need to do is grab a baby wipe and it will clean off. Now, what I like to do is make sure before you close this up again, make sure that you have dried or let air dry your embossing folder so that it is nice and dry before you tuck it away. Okay, so I'm going to clean that off. And I know that I had this kind of closing up on the other side, so I'm going to do this as well here. Now, you can do this with any of your inks, and it looks really cool if you use some of your dye inks with it too. So if we have an extra minute or two, I'll show you that too. I think I've got some spare cardstock around. Okay, so once that is all cleaned off and ready for another use, then what I can do is simply take my background here and put it to use on my card. So what I'm going to do is slide this aside. And again, let's take another look at this card. So I've trimmed this piece down, the brown piece. And again, I'm just using regular cardstock. This is not an especially fancy one. Trimmed it down to fit inside a kind of a frame effect of my card blank. And then I've got another one of the sentiments. So again, the thanks. I think I was in a thankful mood because I've got plenty of thanks cards. So just pop this down. And this is also from some gold cardstock. And then the I appreciate your kindness. Of course, that's one of the sentiment strips. This is up on foam tape, but everything else is lying flat. So it's a really nice, easy to mail card or easy to simply hand over card. So super duper simple to do. Again, if this is something that like you need a card pretty quickly, you want it to be something special and unique, this is a great technique to do. Now, I have the thanks and I appreciate your kindness, but I think if you were to look at this and maybe take the same layout and use different words, I think that this could work for a sympathy card as well. So because of the gold and the darker colors, can kind of go lots of different directions. So hopefully you don't have to make a sympathy card, but if you do, this would be a great design layout and technique to put to use. And don't forget, you also then could have on the other side, you could do, if you wanted to use the raised side instead, you could do the same technique, just flipping your cardstock over to the other side of your embossing folder. So that is our third card. Now I've got one more that I want to show you that is a combination of both of these techniques. Let me grab this one here. So this card is using our blending as well as our inking the embossing platform itself. So I think it may be a little tricky. No, I think you can see the debossed areas here are really light yellow. It's buttercream. So after I've done that, I have then used my trusty blending tools to add a bit of blue and a bit of green on top. So two different techniques in one. And then here's that big, beautiful friend die, which has been layered. So I've got two layers of the friend kind of glued a little bit offset. And of course, our sentiment strips on there too. So let's take a look at how to do this. I am going to grab my buttercream, really nice soft yellow. And then I also have Ocean Waves and Forest Glades. I'm going to set these guys aside for now and simply work with my buttercream. Get my piece of cardstock here. I've just been joined by my trusty tabby cat who's off to one side of me, just to the right-hand side. He's giving himself a bath. So if you hear any unusual noises, that's Tabby just having a bath here. Very professional we are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again, working with this raised section, I'm going to take my buttercream and just apply this right on here. Now, the dye ink takes less time to dry than the pigment ink. So I do want to work a little bit more quickly with this. Okay, so I'm going to pop this in here. Set that down. I'll let you take a look at this while I run this piece through my die cutting machine. And here we go. There's my upper body workout for the day. Die cutting machine. Okay, let's pop those back to one side. And I've got beautiful soft yellow. So soft yellow and the white, again, for spring, for Easter, I think would be a really pretty card base just as it was. But what we're going to do is take this to another dimension. Oh, that sounds a bit sci-fi. We're going to embrace the dimension that we have on here. And again, using a little bit of our dye ink just to hit those raised areas. So blending tool I'm using mostly for greens, but sometimes also for blues as well. So what I'm going to do is start out with my Forest Glades. And this is clean-ish. You know, I don't wash them very often. I have done. But I usually just try and like rub off a little excess ink, and just kind of keep them within their color families. And so with this, I'm just going to go in with that green, and this is going to give me a bit of a two-tone effect. So you can see there how that's coming out. So I'm just going to do this quite lightly. Okay, very easy. And then what I'm going to do is grab a piece of scrap paper, just kind of rub off some of the excess green ink. Go to the Ocean Waves, one of my all-time favorite inks, and add a bit of this on top. So you can go high contrast with this if you want to, or you can do tone on tone. It is totally up to you. Soft effect or something more dramatic. And I absolutely love how this, again, gives you the advantage of the raised dimension on here, but also just that really beautiful color combination. So something nice and light, that buttercream was perfect for the back, and then hitting those raised edges with a combination of our Forest Glades and Ocean Waves. These two are a combination that I think I've used continuously over the years. So there we go for our simple background. And the same colors that I use here, as you can see, they're quite different. A little bit more green on this one here. And then to accent the debossed flower center, I just use some large pearl embellishments. Now with the raised area here, you may be wondering, can I use regular glue with this? Absolutely. You can use your glue pen for this, for adding elements down. But I think I've also mentioned just how much I like to use a bit of foam tape to add things up and give a little bit of lift and dimension. So that works as well. I think I also use some just regular double-sided tape on here. So it's not so dimensional that things don't stick or lay flat on there. So that's what I have on this one. And I love that friend die. And I think, Sue, you said that you thought that you had this die, but that you were looking for it. And someone else suggested, look on the bottom of your Misty. That is a very good suggestion because I have found dies stuck to the bottom of my Misty that I was looking for. And there they were, stuck to the magnetized back. Anything metal. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes and I want to show you a couple more examples, and I will also show you adding a little bit of two colors, and we can actually use our Ocean Waves and, ooh, you know what? Let's use our Ocean Waves and Coral Berry and do another little go round here. So what I'm going to do is grab, again, my folder. I did not clean it from using that buttercream, but that's okay. And I'm going to come in, let's see, on the raised side here. And let's do a little bit of Ocean Waves. This is just playtime. I don't have anything planned for this, so we will see how it looks. And what I'm going to do is give just a quick mist, one little mist of water, just because this is a dye ink. I kind of want some of those colors to blend. I'm going to pop this down. Let's see, I'm going to have some of these just here so that you have something to look at while I run this through. Oh, I have another example I want to show you too. So many different things that you can do with this once you get going. You can do quick and easy, or you can do some fun experimentation. So let's see here how this turned out. I quite like this actually. That definitely needs to be cleaned. Now the colors are blending a little bit more, but it's given me a really pretty two-tone effect. So you can do a couple of colors in there. What I wanted to show you also, a couple of little swatches that I did when we were looking at our gold. So I wanted to try that gold technique using the other side of the embossing folder. So you can get a variety of looks. I quite like this one as well. I think that looks really nice. And this is just using that same technique only on the other side. So embossed versus debossed. Super easy to do. And I love how that detailing got in there. Now the other one was going back to our first die that we were looking at. So this is doing quite a lot of heavy blending with forest glades and the blending tool right on top, just to give that a little bit more definition on here. So again, this can give you a really nice space. Don't forget, you can tilt it this way. You can even cut these apart too, and you can have some really pretty looks. And then this is actually, when I first opened up the folder, I thought, oh, it's not that exciting. Now that I look at it again, though, I quite like it. This is using the ocean waves on the plate before embossing. So Leanne says she likes the other side. Yeah, I like the other side too. I think it just gives you so many different effects. And it is really elegant, really elegant. Like 2 looks in one. And I have to say, I don't have all the Altenew embossing folders. I wish I did, but I suspect many of them will give you the same effects as this. Let me see. I did have one other thing that I wanted to show you, and I didn't have a chance to do anything, to make anything with this, but I wanted to show you with this process here. If you're using those same colors and you cut your pieces apart, you can also create some accents. You know, it's not going to be perfectly cut apart, but that you could actually do, let's see, I'll lift this up here. If you were working with foam tape to layer some of these items up and do some overlapping. So this is just, you know, taking this piece, doing some inking. Let me grab this here again. This, for example, and then just trimming around the outside edge to do some layering. So many things you can. And finally, I have one last piece that I wanted to show you. Got papers everywhere. You should see this place. And I mentioned the Enchanted Gold pigment ink. So this is the Enchanted Gold on black. So again, doing that same process of inking the embossing plate and then running it through. And I think this is really pretty too, so that you could just add a simple word on here or just have it be, let's see, like on the side of your card and have an accent going along the other side. It could be really fun, really striking and unique. Again, for so many different card occasions. So you can go with some darker colors if you had a sympathy or thinking of you kind of theme. You could go for bright, bold, cheerful pinks and springtime. You can go for my favorite peony dye as an accent. Lots and lots of different things that you can do with this. So one of the things that I love about the embossing folders is the versatility, but also, I mean, they do kind of take a beating, right? Like I've got ink, I've got water on here. Need to clean this up for sure. They're sturdy and not that expensive either. So it's a nice way to top up your crafting stash with some items I think that will serve you well. So this is my reminder to myself, don't put them on the shelf and then forget about them. I need to get them out and put them to work because they are a great amount of fun. So just looking at a couple of the comments on here. Sara says, might be interesting to use a strip of each of the embossed and debossed with gold on the same card. You are absolutely right, Sara. I was actually thinking of that too. So she's thinking like to have, you know, kind of a one side A and side B with some of that gold inking. And I think you are absolutely right. Looks like a lot of fun, says Nancy. Yes. Gian. Jean says she wants that folder. Interesting ideas, says Mel. Yeah, we have so many different things that we can do with these folders, which is fantastic. Okay, so we are almost at an hour now. So I'm going to change up the camera and dig out all of my supplies here. I'll show you the tools that we've been working with and whiz through again some of the card projects and then let you go about your day or your evening. I have papers everywhere on here. This is what crafting's about. Okay, so I'm going to switch up the camera here. So hang in there with me. I'm going to come back to you. I think there we go. Hello again. So thank you so much for sticking with us today. So I'm just going to zoom through some of the products that we have been working with today. Give a shout if you have any questions while we are wrapping up. Don't forget, also, we've got a couple more minutes. So if you haven't shared tonight's live, do be sure to pop in a little comment in the chat saying that you shared and let us know how you shared as well. Okay, so again, what we've been playing with today, this is the Ornamental Feature Embossing Folder. So this really beautiful kind of doily with a sentiment inside, or space for a sentiment inside, and that is going to give you this effect here if you're simply using it white on white, which I have to say is such a classic, great way to use this. And I'm even thinking as I was playing with it on the white cardstock, if you had just, let's see, just like one portion of this, if you're die cutting or if you're embossing just one section of the embossing plate, that this would be really beautiful, maybe on top of a menu or invitation. I don't know why I'm thinking wedding decorations. I would love to go to a wedding. I'd love to go anywhere that's got menus and invitations, but maybe that's just my dreamland. But I think you can use this for lots of really beautiful effects. So that is our ornamental feature. And then we have the flowers and leaves. Absolutely stunning, all over design. So you can use the whole thing, you can use a portion of it, and that will give you a range of looks, everything from our blending brush technique. And again, these are using these little guys, which I love. I feel like I need to have I have two. I'm making good use of them, but I think I may have a wish list for a couple more for my different colors. So this is just applying that soft ink on there. Gives you a really pretty effect. You can also put it to use with some of the metallic pigment inks. And this one was, which one was it? Antique gold. Or, of course, you can use the enchanted gold, which are, one of them is buried here. So these guys here. I was going to say, aren't you surprised that I didn't use my obsidian pigment ink? But of course, that's what I've been using to stamp all of my sentiments. So that's my go-to black ink. And then finally, also wanted to give this one last shout out. My Desert Island Must-Have Peony Dream 3D die set. Always going to come in handy, especially when you are adding just a little something to your embossed background. Really pretty. Super easy to do too. And finally, my other embellishments here. Our sentiment strips, number 2. So perfect size, perfect assortment of sentiments, as well as our sentiment word or signature word dies come in handy. Perfect fit inside that embossed, debossed area. And then our Simply Friend die. Sue, hi, Sue, my friend. I hope you find your friend die. Do check the bottom of that Misty. And I hope it shows up, because there's nothing worse than padding around looking for a die. I have gone around with magnets before to look for dies that may have fallen into the garbage or recycling bin. So I wish you luck in finding that. So we have so far been going through lots and lots of different techniques. You can do bright and bold, you can do metallic, you can do a soft double color effect. So much to do with our fantastic embossing folder. So I invite you to grab those embossing folders out of your stash if you have them tucked away like I did, or have a look and see what Altenew has. They've got some really beautiful designs. I had a couple more on my wish list too. They'll go along with my blenders. So I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day or evening, whichever part of the day you're at. Thank you again to Orem for joining me this evening. She said that it's nice to have a bit of a break for crafting, and I agree. I feel the same way. So hopefully this has provided you all with a bit of a break and some creative inspiration too. So a big thank you to everybody for joining me today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week and great weekend. And I will catch you again next time. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.